Stock images are a thing of beauty. Rather than spend a metric cluck ton of time and money on getting the image you want, why not just have someone do all the work for you? Graphicsstock has the largest unlimited download library of graphics, photos, vectors, and illustrations for all of your creative needs. Just look at this fire-breathing dragon I was able to find and download in seconds. Do you know how hard it is to find those in real life? With a Graphicsstock subscription, 350,000 images are at your fingertips to help make your next YouTube video, school project, or work presentation. Go to graphicsstock.com/YouTube or click the link in the description below to start downloading and get 7 days of Graphicsstock for free. This video was sponsored by Graphicsstock, which should be pretty obvious by now, but I still have to say it for legal reasons. Click the link. Okay, bye. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well. Today I'm going to be doing sort of a laid-back and casual review of the Corsair ONE. So sorry if this video is a little bit lengthy. It's not scripted at all, so I might tend to digress like Jay a bit in the midst of all this. But if you were in the market for a more concise and detailed review of the Corsair ONE, I've linked some videos in the description below from my good YouTube friends, so go ahead and check that out. But yeah, we're just going to talk about this thing, talk about what makes it special and all that, and whether or not it's worth the money. For starters, this is a pre-built system, and before you just instantly exit out of the video and go, pre-built, nasty, horrible, there are some very special things about this rig that set it apart from a conventional small form factor pre-built. The first of which is that it is using a custom mini ITX case. However, the components inside are all using standard form factor, which means you can technically upgrade this thing, and we're going to talk about that more in detail later on. The other cool thing about this system is that the particular model I have here with me today is actually rocking a water-cooled CPU and GPU, which is pretty impressive considering the small footprint that Corsair has managed to fit this all in, and we'll see exactly how they did that in just a moment. But we're talking about 12 liters of volume capacity here. It's very small. You could fit this in a backpack. It'd have to be a larger backpack, but you could do it. It's a little heavy. Very possible though, it's super portable, especially for all the power that's in here. This particular model runs for $2,300, which is a bit on the steep side. This specific model is the Corsair ONE PRO web store exclusive, which means you can only purchase it from the Corsair website. And it's actually one of 4 different hardware loadouts that you can choose from. I think it's the second highest tier. There's one above it that features a GTX 1080 Ti, and there's 2 more models beneath it with lesser specs, of course. This one is actually featuring a GTX 1080, still very powerful, a full-fledged desktop GPU, as well as a 7700K Core i7 from Intel. And again, both of those are water-cooled, which is pretty awesome. And we've also got 16 gigs of Corsair Vengeance LPX DDR4. That's running at 2400, I believe, and we've also got a 960 gig SSD. That is SATA 3, so it's not NVMe, but for most users, if you're not doing like some hardcore professional workstation applications, then you're probably good with SATA 3. We'll take a look at the other specs later on, but for now, let's talk about the case and sort of the exterior. For one, it's totes gorge. It's totes gorge, guys. It's a very nice looking case. Looks even better in person. I watched the videos and other reviews, and I'm like, yeah, it looks pretty nice. And then seeing it in person, it's like, whoa, that's a pretty sexy pre-built right there. It's actually got full aluminum paneling around the sides. It's black aluminum. You actually get these really nice aqua blue LED strips on either side. They can be disabled, but they're not RGB. Who knew that Corsair still made non-RGB components here in 2017? And honestly, I don't even mind that it's not RGB, like, at all. In fact, I kind of like that it's just one color. It sort of identifies and brands the products. Like when you see those aqua strips, you instantly know that it's the one, so to speak. Front I/O, we've got a nice power button that has a nice click to it. It's very high quality. We've also got a single HDMI 2.0B at the front if you're into VR, and one USB 3 port. I would have liked to see a second one, especially for users, including myself, that sometimes use peripheral devices having a USB receiver plugged into one port. It's nice to have a second one if you want to just quickly pop in a flash drive or something like that. But what can you do? One will have to do for now. There's also no front panel audio, which I thought was kind of strange. I personally am not a fan. I try to avoid front panel audio at all costs. But for users who are into that and use it often, that's kind of a bummer. We've also got ventilation on both sides. We'll talk about that in a second. Moving on to the back here. Trying not to get fingerprints on this thing. This thing is a fingerprint magnet, by the way. But if you can manage to keep it clean, it looks fantastic. Just thought I'd point that out. So we've got our usual fanfare of audio jacks, SPDIF out, 2 threads where you can connect some Wi-Fi antennas, a clear CMOS button, which is really nice actually, gigabit Ethernet, 3 USB 3 ports, a USB 3.1 Type-C port, 2 USB 2s, and a PS2 port for an old school mouse or keyboard. And there's also 3 video outputs. That's definitely not reference GTX 1080 I/O, but of course we do have the one HDMI on the front, hence why we only have 3 at the back, which is probably good enough for most users. We get 2 that's 2 DisplayPort 1.4s and 1 HDMI 2.0B, and the AC plug, of course, at the bottom. There's also this button at the top, which allows you to sort of release the top grill. Haha, haha. Yeah, you're probably wondering about that, weren't you? So there's a 140 millimeter maglev fan right at the top there, and it's the only case fan in the entire chassis, believe it or not. So it's actually exhausting hot air up and out of the case, which means it's bringing fresh air through the side ventilation on either side. This case is actually designed in such a way where there's 2 chambers, one chamber for the GPU and the other for the CPU and motherboard. And so there's ventilation on both sides, so either side is getting ample airflow, which is nice. Let's take an actual closer look at the internals. I think that's where things get really interesting with the Corsair ONE. And I also want to mention that it's super quiet right now because we're idling, of course, but also because we only have 1 case fan, and it's a 140, it's a maglev, it's super high quality, so this is probably going to be a fairly quiet mini ITX PC, which you generally don't hear too often when it comes to pre-builds. So, but we'll do an acoustics test soon enough. Let's go ahead and, I don't know why I put it back on, let's just pop this sucker up again. All right, maybe I should zoom out. Let's change camera angle so you can see what I'm doing here. All right, so got my creepy gloves on, we're gonna crack this sucker open. Let's go ahead and start again by pressing that button at the back and releasing the grill. Here's a look at the maglev fan. Beautiful. It is PWM, of course, and you can just unplug it like that. You know, I'm gonna power the system down. Actually, I should have done that earlier. I gotta say, I like how removing this part was completely toolless. It makes it super easy. However, you will need a screwdriver for this next part. So either side, both of these side panels on the Corsair ONE can fold down, giving you access to either chamber. We're gonna start with the CPU and motherboard chamber. And for that you will need, again, a screwdriver. There are 2 screws. Only 2 though. I'm glad there's only 2. Nice standard Phillips head screws. None of that hexagonal crap. Come on, screw. I believe in you. Oh, Jesus. Okay, make sure you put your hand and you're ready to catch the panel when it falls like that so that it doesn't fall like that. So here we get our first glimpse as to how exactly Corsair has gone about water cooling their CPU. We've got our water block with the built-in pump, 2 tubes, very short tubes to fit everything nicely, connected to a slim 240 millimeter radiator, and the rad is actually just flush with the side panel, so you get really nice fresh intake going through that rad and the rest of the system. Very nice design overall. This more or less functions like a regular AIO water block, so you could theoretically pop this off and swap in a different CPU. Of course, with LGA 1151 and a 7700K, there's not really much of an upgrade path there, but say, I don't know, something terrible happens to your CPU, you need to swap it out, you could do so. Or you could just swap out the entire motherboard and just install like a completely new platform if you wanted to. This motherboard in particular is Z270, so obviously we can overclock. There's actually a pretty fatty heatsink on the VRM, so I'm pretty sure we could dial in a hefty OC. We've also got both of our memory modules populated there. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention about the motherboard, I believe, watching the other reviews, that there is an M.2 slot at the back of the board. I can't recall if it's PCIe or SATA or both. I'll make an annotation or something, but that is an option. Of course, it would be kind of a pain to get to since it's behind the board. You'd have to either take out the entire board, or maybe you could access it from the GPU chamber if you remove the graphics card, but I'm not too sure about that. However, here's a peek at your your 2.5-inch SATA 3 SSD, and here we have our 400 watt SFX power supply with Corsair branding. Look at what they've done with the wiring here. It looks like a thinner gauge, sort of a custom wiring job here, and the cable management is superb, guys. Like, it keeps a lot of open room so the airflow can more easily flow through the case, which is really nice. So good job on you, Corsair, for that. If we look at the top really quick, there's your power switch, and you can see that they're using an AC pass-through to go to the bottom back of the case. And also, there's some pass-throughs for your video outs on the video card, which we should take a look at now. Let's do that. Let's put this back up, and then we'll crack open the other side. One screw, And I'm gonna catch it this time. Come on. Yeah, you know. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is where the video card lies. It's not an honest one. And we get a very similar configuration as we saw with the CPU. We've got our water block with a built-in pump, some short tubing going to a slim 240mm radiator up against the side panel. And you'll notice that the GPU is really the only part of the card that's being cooled by liquid. Everything else is either passive or actively cooled by air. You can see that there's actually a blower style fan right here that's on the VRM, or that's covering the VRM area. So that's kind of nice. You're getting dedicated water cooling just for your GPU. We've also got a very smart implementation of a PCB that connects the graphics card via its PCIe 3.0 connector and wires it to the motherboard on the other side. And here you can see we've got some pass-through cables going from all 4 of our video outs on the graphics card to this module down here, sort of a custom design that gives us the 3 video outs that we saw on the back of the case earlier. Now, when I first saw how this was all laid out, I was pretty unsure of whether or not you could upgrade the graphics card, because honestly, if you couldn't, that would be a huge deal breaker for me personally, especially if you're spending this kind of money on a pre-built. I want to be able to upgrade it in the future. I don't want it to just have a dead stop when it gets too slow and I have to buy a completely new system. So fortunately, it looks like you probably can upgrade the video card. This looks like just a regular 2-slot card. The rear I/O is just a 2-slot design, so you could pop in another card. However, I don't know how easy it would be to actually transfer the cooling system onto another graphics card. It would have to be one of a similar board, a similar PCB layout for sure. But that being said, I just would have to try it myself in order to find out, which I'm not going to be doing today. What's more feasible, most likely, is just taking the entire card and the cooling system out and putting in just a regular air-cooled GPU. But the downside would be that you would be losing out on this beautiful cooling system, which means you would probably be introducing a bit more noise into the equation, especially if you're using a blower-style card. I wouldn't recommend that. Getting off track here, you probably can upgrade to a different video card later down the line. I'm going to say that's possible. However, you're probably going to also need to be very careful with what you're doing. You need to know what you're doing, because if you mess up, you are going to be voiding your warranty by upgrading in the first place, and Corsair won't be able to help you. So just make sure you do your homework and your research before you start diving in to swapping things out and things like that. But the fact that you can upgrade this is so huge and makes this so much more valuable as a product to me. Because again, Corsair has done a really good job and made a smart choice to use standard form factor components. So that is pretty awesome. I think on that note, let's actually hook this up. I want to power it back up again because it looks so pretty with those LEDs. And let's just see how it performs. Let's check out some thermals, some acoustics, and we'll benchmark it and maybe overclock it. I don't know. Do we have time for all that? We'll see. We'll see what we get through. Let's freaking do it. All right, ladies and germs, we are in the BIOS. You can see it's the MSI UEFI because we're rocking an MSI motherboard, of course. This is a good BIOS. I'm very familiar with it. I've used countless Z270 MSI boards up till this point, and it's a good UEFI. I do like it. It's well organized, well thought out, easy to find everything, and you can do some overclocking with it as well. We're going to hold off on that just for now because I want to see what the temperatures are just at the default settings with Turbo Boost enabled on our 7700K, but here's all the tweaking options available to you. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump into the OS. Alright, so here we are on the first level of GTA 5, just rolling through some streets with good old Franklin. And right off the bat, we can see that we've got we're hitting our rated frequency, our turbo of 4500 megahertz on the CPU, and temperatures are looking in the range of the 70s, I would say. We have already spiked up to 83 degrees C, which is kind of warm. Nothing to be alarmed of. It's still beneath the maximum temperature threshold for the 7700K. However, temperatures could be chillier, and this sort of makes me a little weary to get into some overclocking, just because I know that if we bump up the voltage any, we could potentially see even higher temps, and I wouldn't want to push it much further, so I would overclock at your discretion. I've already sort of dabbled with some CPU overclocking before filming this shot, and I was able to get 4.8 gigahertz at 1.23 volts stable, and that playing the same level in GTA 5, I was actually spiking up to 86 degrees C And that was, you know, not a constant 86C, but it was definitely hitting that every once in a while. So it depends on how comfortable you are with certain temperatures and just sort of where you want your system to level at. I'm pretty happy with 83C right here. I don't think I would overclock much, just because at the end of the day, you're probably not going to notice a difference in gaming performance anyway. It's just sort of, you know, it would have been nice to have a bit more thermal headroom to push our CPU a bit further, especially for all you enthusiasts out there who like to overclock for the thrill of it, which is totally understandable. But our GPU, on the other hand, this is our GTX 1080 right now is running stock, have not touched it at all, and we're at a chilly 53 or 55 degrees C. We're in the mid 50s, which is phenomenal. So where the CPU thermals are lacking a bit, the cooling system on the GPU is doing its job very well. So it kind of makes me want to overclock it, which we should do that now. Alright guys, so here we are in Unigine Heaven 4.0. You can see I've maxed out our power and temp target sliders and dialed in a pretty decent core clock offset of 240 megahertz, a more moderate offset on our memory clock of 150 megahertz, bringing us to 2075.5 megahertz, just south of 2.1 gigahertz, guys, at 61 degrees Celsius. Holy moly, that's freaking awesome. You would have to spend an arm and a leg just to get a GPU of this caliber running at these speeds at that temperature. So the fact that Corsair's managed to do this in such a small footprint is really a testament to the engineering and design of the cooling system on that video card. If only the CPU cooled this well, then it would just be, you know, 10 out of 10 and all that sort of thing, but this is still really impressive, guys. So plenty of overclocking headroom to be had on the video card in the Corsair ONE. But we're not finished yet, ladies and gentlemen. The surprises keep on coming. Let's talk about acoustics, first of which I can barely hear this system while it's running. You know, it's been running Unigine Heaven for about 10-15 minutes now, and it is just quiet. I mean, it's audible, you can hear it, but it's such a low hum, and, you know, against my little window AC unit, it just fades into the background. It's just so, it's very graceful. So here's a sound test, idle and load acoustics for your viewing or your hearing pleasure. Suffice it to say, I am completely stunned just at how quiet this thing is, and how cool it is, at least for the GPU. And finally, before we close things out, I wanted to give you guys a quick look at gaming performance. Obviously, that's what most people who buy this thing are going to be doing most of the time, is playing games. And here we have GTA 5 at 2560 by 1440, MSAA is disabled. However, all the other settings are completely maxed out, draw distance, texture quality, etc., shadows. And I'm not going to be doing any further hard benchmarks on this thing. You guys are already pretty familiar with the performance of the GTX 1080 and the 7700K, even when paired together. That's been exhaustively tested. So, but here, just to show that you are getting, you know, DIY desktop grade performance here at around 80 FPS. And granted, this is a very textured scene with a lot of draw calls and stuff way out in the distance. But in the cities, I was getting around 100 FPS easy, where it's a little bit more populated with buildings and stuff. Again, this is just a really smooth experience. You wouldn't notice that it's a pre-built of any kind. Also, the bloatware, there's like no bloatware. I mean, there's like a few Corsair apps, maybe an MSI app or two, but nothing too intrusive. Just wanted to point that out. But yeah, the gameplay on this thing is just absolutely killer. So on that note, let's go ahead and wrap this video up with some closing words. Alright, so where to begin with this fantastic product? There's honestly so much to love about it, but there's a few shortcomings as well. So I'll go down the list of pros and cons as we wrap things up here. First of which is, I love how portable it is. You can literally take it anywhere, and it's versatile as well. You can use it as an HTPC if you have room in your home entertainment center, which you wouldn't need much room to fit this, and it would look really nice at the same time. You could use it as a workstation PC, plop it right next to a nice big 4K monitor, and do some editing. I mean, you can pretty much do anything with this PC. This is like what I wanted my go anything or go anywhere, do anything PC to be. This is like what that computer aspires to. It's powerful as hell, obviously, with the current configuration, GTX 1080, 7700K, it just screams through games that we don't really need to expand on that much. GPU thermals are absolutely bonkers. I mean, 60 degrees Celsius under load while overclocked, heavily overclocked, mind you, is just insane. And if you were to tweak the voltage a bit, you could probably easily hit 2.1 gigahertz on the card, no problem. Noise profile is also fantastic. This is, again, one of the quietest... What do you want? Ah.
I love you. Bye. I'll see you.
Okay, I love you too. Have a good day. Bye. Wives. It is so quiet, though. I honestly can't get over how quiet the One is, and it truly is a thing of beauty. It really is. But another cool thing about this product is that there's only one support team you have to deal with, Corsair, of course. It doesn't matter if your CPU, graphics card, motherboard, SSD, whatever goes wrong, you just call up Corsair, as opposed to if you're doing it yourself, you've got potentially 8 to 12 different manufacturers that you have to go through if you have an issue, warranty problems, etc. So that is a nice convenience. And perhaps my favorite feature about the One is that it is upgradable. And granted, the GTX 1080 is going to last you quite some time, but eventually it will get slow, and you'll want to swap it out for another 2-slot card. You'll be able to do that fairly easily, and I'm going to say fairly easily, and here's where we start to go to some of the cons, some of the shortcomings of the One, is that since it is a custom case, upgrading it and servicing it is going to be a little bit more tricky than just a regular DIY build. So you want to bear that in mind, and it'll also void your warranty. So all you warranty voiders out there who don't give an F, that's probably fine for you, but for those of us who might still want to hang on to that just for peace of mind, if you do upgrade your system, you are going to miss out on a warranty. But other things to note here, the front I/O is a little bit lacking. I would have liked to see an additional USB 3 and perhaps an audio jack at the front. Not a huge deal, maybe for some. CPU thermals were a little bit underwhelming. I would have really liked to be able to push that 7700K to at least, 4.8, 5 gigahertz, and still maintain, temperatures in the low 80s at the very most. But unfortunately, we were not able to do that. So that is kind of a downer. It kind of tricks you, right? You see the K SKU, you're like, I can, limitless potential, but that's not quite the case here. And then finally, this is a little bit pricier than if you were to build a similar rig yourself. Of course, you're going to be sacrificing several things by building it yourself, which usually it's the other way around, right? If you're getting a pre-built, then there's certain things you're missing out on. But honestly, thermals and silence, you're getting all of that in this pre-built package. Granted, for about 25 to 30% more than what you could buy equivalently on your own, but damn, it's a solid product, that's undeniable, and I would give it a full recommendation, assuming you have the funds. And if you're, if this is the sort of product that you need, it's the one you should get, for sure. But I think that's it. Those are all the things that I wanted to say about the Corsair One. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was lengthier and sort of unscripted, off the cuff. Hopefully you don't mind. Let me know what you think about this product in the comments below, and be sure to toss me a like on the video if you enjoyed it. We will be back shortly. I will be back shortly with some more tech content as always, so be sure to subscribe to the channel for more tech stuff coming at you really soon. Before you go, be sure to check out Bitwit Ultra, my ad-free early access channel for $1.50 a month. This video that you're watching right now actually aired on Ultra a week ago. You could have seen this video a week early, so get subscribed to that. The first 2 weeks are completely free, so it's no risk to you. You can back out at any time should you choose. So go ahead and check that out. Again, guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, I'm Bitwit. Have a good one, and I'll see y'all in the next video.